The earliest presidential debate ever is now in the books. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump came face to face tonight in Atlanta. Callan Gray is here with the biggest takeaways. Callan.
Lindsay, this debate lasted about an hour and 40 minutes. This first showdown, hosted by CNN, had different rules. A candidate's mic was muted when the other was speaking, and former President Donald Trump and President Joe Biden mostly abided by that. Still, we heard both candidates on the attack as they debated a number of issues, including abortion rights. Former President Trump clarifying he supports the Supreme Court's ruling allowing access to abortion pills to continue. President Biden, meanwhile, saying he will restore Roe v. Wade in another term and does not support late-term abortions.
He's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen.
The candidates also debated the wars in Ukraine and Gaza, immigration, the economy, and the events on January 6th. Political science professor Larry Jacobs is here with us to provide some analysis. Larry, thank you for being with us.
Good to be with you.
From your perspective, who really came out ahead with this debate? You know,
going into the debate, there were a lot of questions, including among most Americans, about Joe Biden's mental capacity. And that was reinforced tonight. There were points where Joe Biden lost his train of thought, where he really was struggling to put together ideas and to do it consistently. Whereas Donald Trump presented in a much more vigorous way. He was really on the attack throughout. I would say, in terms of the debaters' points, probably Joe Biden won there. Donald Trump, was struggling with the truth at points, and I think the fact checkers are really going to go at him.
It was about 45 minutes into the debate that President Biden finally brought up former President Donald Trump's recent conviction. Take a listen.
The crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give you a minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won.
Now, our latest KCP Survey USA poll shows President Biden has seen gains since the former president's most recent conviction. Do you think that former President Trump did enough to regain some of those voters tonight?
I don't think so. I do think Donald Trump performed well. My hunch is it's not going to be a huge change. There might be, a slight shift back in the direction of Donald Trump. This is going to be a close race, into the fall. But the big thing tonight is that Joe Biden missed an opportunity to really score and begin to tighten the race and get a lead. I don't think that's going to happen. I think this was a campaign debate that probably the Trump people are thrilled with, and the Joe Biden campaign is really concerned about.
It was surprising to you it took that long for this to come up.
It should not have come up halfway through the debate. It was clear that Joe Biden, I think, was struggling with his brief. He may have had it something scheduled to come up right away, and it just slipped.
We saw some of those struggles continue in the closing remarks. President Biden focused on taxes. He pledged to reduce taxes for Americans. That was his main point with that, while former President Trump touched on a number of issues, criticizing the president on the withdrawal from Afghanistan, criticizing the president on his handling with the war in Gaza, among other issues. Where do these campaigns go from here, and what are voters left with from those closing remarks?
Well, I think Donald Trump's going to be on the offensive. He's going to, have a pitch, and I expect we'll see a lot of ads playing up the struggles mentally that Joe Biden has. He's going to be really challenging his capacity to be president, to serve 4 more years. That is laid out now for Donald Trump, and he's got a case to make. I think Joe Biden's going to try to backfill. He's going to come back to some of these risks that he sees in Donald Trump's being elected, including around January 6th, that Donald Trump didn't really answer as to what happened at that period, and the issue about retribution, which Donald Trump has been talking about, and Joe Biden challenged him on that.
And we have another debate still ahead coming up this fall. Still a lot in this campaign yet to be seen. Larry, it's always great to hear your insight. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Lindsay, I'll send it back to you.